let's start the show.
Hey, brother.
Are you laughing at my brother?
Hey, Romano.
Is that why you slap my brother around in public?
You made me brother.
I'm talking to, am I my brother's keeper? Huh?
Hey, brother.
You're my older brother, and I love you.
Oh, he is truly his brother's keeper.
Got a guy's thigh on my chin.
What the hell are you talking about?
What was the context of that clip? Now I'm a little worried. I have no idea what I'm saying during these.
We don't.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that comes with good conversation, is blacking out a little bit on what's actually being said.
Yeah.
Forgetting it's being recorded. No, that was from Bad Concert Stories. And I was explaining the Kendrick Lamar show when all the people from the nosebleeds rushed to the aisle and I got smashed in between like a crowd of people to the left and Ash and everyone else on the right.
Smash.
And you were like, so it's just like, you know, some guy's thigh is in my...
Got a guy's thigh on my chin.
Yeah, that's great.
Good grab, dude. Well done. You have an upcoming show this week.
Yeah,
We've talked a lot about it already, but how are you feeling as we got closer to that?
Feeling good, man. Tomorrow we actually have a trip up to St. Lawrence University in Canton, New York to play a gig for the kids at the college who are great.
The kiddos.
And Crooked Coast is the other band on the bill.
Okay.
Who are really cool. Following each other for a while.
Are they from around here?
To be honest, I'm not sure where they're from. But I should know because we're going to be homies. They're letting us use a bunch of stuff.
That's cool. I heard Simon's using like a really giant kick drum.
Yeah, they have a 26-inch kick.
He said that's like John Bonham level kick drum.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. Oh, they're from the Cape.
I wonder if Jimmy Denny knows him.
It's very possible.
That's cool. Crooked Coast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to look them up. That's cool.
Yeah, nice dudes. Just from social media stuff, they've been real cool.
Yeah. And you had your last band rehearsal ever at our...
In these hollowed halls.
In these hollowed halls, man. We lived here for 5 years. You lived with us for the first 2 of those.
I think it's 4.
We've been here 4 years.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's right. This is the end of our 3rd year.
We moved here in the summer of 2019.
Yeah. Shit.
When a young Jay Ferris arrived from... excuse me.
God.
Ye old Tennessee.
Thank God for that young man.
Yeah, in many ways.
Yeah.
It would have been a great time for the...
Often associated with lame people, Jay is completely the opposite of how that meme is typically used.
Jay's electric guitar lick would be like a...
Yeah,
Be something a little more...
flat picking.
Yeah,
a little more flat picking in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that feels like it was only a year though, which is remarkable. Like, I've like, between the time you moved out and now that we're moving out, that feels like it's been condensed in like a year for me.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't feel like it was 4 years ago.
Yeah.
But I guess that's a good sign of it. The good times flying by, man.
I think, yeah, time tends to fly faster when your scenery stays the same for long periods of time.
Yeah, that's true.
Because you just stop paying attention to the fine details of new environment stuff. And
Yeah, true.
yeah, but it does trip me out, the timing of all of this. Like, it's been a couple years for me since I lived permanently in this house, but I am back here several days a week, no matter what. So it's different than like other houses we've rented and lived in before, where just from where I'm sitting now, it feels like I lived here for the same amount of time as we did in the house in Northbridge, but we didn't.
Right.
Or I didn't. I lived twice as long here, and you guys have lived 4 times as long here, which is crazy. But yeah, it's a poopy castle.
In many respects, it's a poopy castle, but
A Familiar Sounds original term.
familiar poopy castle sounds. If I lived in a poopy castle, it would sound like the radiators do in this house.
You think if I had the sound of like an echoey fart dump noise,
Oh, God.
we'd probably lose a few people. That was good. That read. That could be a fart. It'd be a weird one.
It could be a fart. It could be a trombone.
That's mine. I mic'd that up last night.
Since when have you started playing the trombone?
The butt trombone.
The butt trombone, like a Monty Python cartoon. Terry Gilliam. So good.
Yeah, we're sailing on down.
Yep.
Furbeck Avenue, and the house is going away, but we don't forget what we played in the
Chat GPT, write, or I just said B. Chat GPT, write new lyrics to a country song about moving on from a good old house with poopy bones.
Yeah, I was trying to do Sail On by the Commodores.
Oh, I don't know that song.
Oh, it's great.
Is that yacht rock?
I mean, it would probably
Simply by the name, it can be inherited into that category.
Well, the Commodores were super cool because I think like soul and R&B world at the time thought they were awesome, and then also like rock musicians thought they were awesome, and they kind of did both things like really well. I know they toured with Queen, I think.
Don't the Commodores have a sample that's really big in some hip hop song?
I'm sure that's true. But they are. You could argue they launched Lionel Richie.
Oh,
That was the band he was in.
Yeah,
and he was never like the permanent lead singer. They had, I think, like everybody in the Commodores sings really well, but Lionel Richie was just one of the guys.
Yeah.
So it's like songs like Brick House, like
Is that Lionel Richie singing?
Lionel Richie is not the lead vocalist in the I mean, I don't know his name, but one of the guys at least, he does sing like it almost feels like disingenuous, like country twangy.
Oh, really?
And that's the "She's a brick house." Like that voice, you hear that in all the Commodore songs. I don't know which dude that is, but
I'm glad you just referenced Brick House because that is kind of the only way I know them.
Yeah.
Is from having the Commodores on all of my wedding playlists.
yeah, that's probably like their quintessential like funk arrangement song.
The funk anthem.
But then like a lot of their songs have more of a songwritery like rock feel to them too. Sail On is one of them. But yeah, I think from just the time frame and the topical music and sailing thing,
Just bring them in there.
it probably would qualify.
They get on the
for
boat.
yacht rock. Yeah. Oh.
You like that? Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, it's a beautiful day, dude, for a
Sailing,
you know, go fishing.
I'm up a half step or something.
Yeah.
Sailing. That's the note, right? An F natural.
There's a lot of harmony in that note.
Takes me where
E. Yeah, you have it.
I'm going.
Yeah. You're very colorful today, man.
Thank you. Well, I was in all black, and for the last 8 episodes, I've been wearing all black, so.
So you did a hard left turn out of no color to all of the colors.
Well, it's a lot easier to clip out the thumbnail this way, too. I'm saving myself a little bit of time in post while we're moving out.
That's nice.
Yeah.
And by the way, you do a great job with the post.
Thank you. I have a lot of fun doing it just because it's so silly.
I tend to listen to the previous episode, usually like the afternoon before we shoot.
Oh, just so you can like,
So I can grab
divert.
anything that was funny or like, you know,
that's cool.
take note of anything visual or audio that I want to try to do different next time. And every time I see the little name cards pop up, I'm like, oh, that looks great.
Thanks, man. I would like to improve those. Those are pretty boilerplate. Like, I mean, I did create a separate asset for the background banner and then an in Premiere asset for the titles so I could change them in the software that I would feel like it would be needed to change them or copy them for a guest or something. Mm-hmm. But I don't think they need to be more engaging. I feel like that's one thing we could improve on at the very least is just have that look a little bit more welcoming. But ultimately, the people you have listening to a podcast know who you are already. After kind of just like investigating and seeing our name in the description with what we're talking about that week. I don't know. I feel like it's almost a kind of an arbitrary thing to add, but for brand new people, it is kind of important. Like, I've listened to podcasts with Rachel before where she's like, so is that Jay or Dan? And it's like,
Yeah.
that's Jay, that one's Dan. But like, when two comedians are just like riffing and riffing and riffing, it is kind of hard to get lost in the mix, especially when there's like a guest. So, but the fact that we're the same recurring hosts on the show, I think means it's less important of a thing to worry about right now.
Yeah.
But I would like it to be cool. I love the Two Bears, One Cave little faces that pop up and like kind of do that. And then Bobby Lee and Andrew Santino's show Bad Friends, they have someone like do a cartoon of, I guess I'm bringing this into perspective because I always see it with a guest. They always have a unique cartoon for that guest that's like animated in like 4 frames.
That's cool.
All in kind of like different poses and positions. And they just cycle through it every like half second. So it's kind of got a little motion, but it's unique, but it's still static kind of in your view.
Yeah.
And that's part of the title card. But Andrew and Bobby have their own. That's always the same. But it's the same kind of principle. It's a small little caricature of them that's making different faces and has a slightly different pose. So it's kind of animated, but not. It's really cool. I like that. But you've got to have a really good animator on speed dial to get that done.
Yeah.
And while I would love to be able to do that further down the line, I just don't have the assets or time to do that right now.
Well, I wouldn't worry because a wise person once told me something that sticks with me all the time when it comes to this sort of stuff.
You just got to figure out how to massage it the right way so it works.
And I think that applies here too. To your graphics. It's just a little massaging.
I will pay the price for my words for the rest of my life. Oh, man. Yeah, I need to crack open this.
Yeah, dude. Treat yourself to the champagne
yes.
of beers.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers, dude.
I have water in my BLB cup right now.
Blue
Light Bandits Silly Pines. Get yours on bluelightbandits.com.
Yes.
And sell them out so we can get new ones with new colors and cool new graphics from their new album art because it's cool. Have you seen it? It's like they're all falling.
Oh, we were bouncy. It was okay.
Oh, everyone's safe. I only heard one bounce, though, so I assume the others are falling through the abyss right now. I hope Jay lived. Just joking.
It's, the house, we're moving on from it. It's fair to say this little operation is going to have a new home pretty soon, visually. I'm looking forward to that. We have some candidates that we're considering.
I want house. So hard to acquire house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even Kathy said today, our landlord, that the market right now is for a seller is just nuts. Like,
Yeah.
She said you hardly have to really do anything and the price just triples. Like what people are willing to pay. It's just like, she was like, I have all these rentals and I immediately am flipping them and selling them because otherwise I'm just losing money. And it's like, yeah, that makes sense right now when people are willing to outbid you 4 times what the property's worth.
Yeah.
Not really 4 times, but gross exaggeration.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've got a couple interesting opportunities.
It's a weird time, man. You remember the Superman movie with Kevin Spacey?
Yeah, the first one.
It's the first Superman after the Christopher Reeve ones stopped.
That one was called just Superman, right?
I think Superman Returns, maybe?
Yes, Superman Returns. That's
Yeah.
right. And then Man of Steel is the Henry Cavill one, right?
Right, which I actually haven't seen any of those. But
you're not missing.
I liked the Brandon Routh, Kevin Spacey one.
Yeah.
And then people for my whole life have been like, that was trash garbage.
Yeah.
And sure, that's fine. I feel that way about like the Phantom Menace too. Less so because I have rewatched that a bunch and been like, oh, I get the criticisms a little bit more now.
Of course, yeah.
But I still love it. And with Superman Returns, I really did enjoy it in theater, and I had the DVD and I watched it a bunch. But the premise of that movie was Lex Luthor has figured out how to use kryptonite to create more land masses on Earth,
Mm-hmm.
like in the middle of the ocean, and it's made out of kryptonite. So it's like a Superman-proof world that he's trying to create.
Is his motivation that he thinks Superman is not good for humanity, or was he in a world domination mindset? I'd like totally forget.
I think it's both.
Oh,
World domination defeats Superman.
minus Superman.
But he throws out one line when he's like revealing his master plan. That's something like, "Land, sweetie. It's the only thing God's not making any more of." It's like some line like that in Kevin Spacey saucy voice. And even then I did think like that's profound.
Come along, honey. Let's go fondle a kid's salad.
We found all the land. So it's nuts that like
Well, if the oceans sink, we'll find more.
they're rising, dude. We have the opposite problem. There's less and less land every year.
This is true.
And
But the desert's shrinking. Did you hear that? The Sahara Desert is actually shrinking because
really?
the more CO2 in the air is actually helping the plants over there hold in their water. Apparently this thing happens where when plants have an abundance of CO2, it's like humans having more oxygen available at all times. So they actually like kind of change where their pores, I guess, whatever they allows them to access the oxygen, they like restrict themselves, and it allows them to hold on to more moisture, which in the desert is crucial. So like the desert's actually like kind of shrinking in from the sides. The more CO2 is in the atmosphere. Isn't that wild?
Yeah. It's unexpected to hear that.
Yeah. I mean, who fucking cares? But like
I thought you were going to say like it doesn't solve the major climate issues, but
that's kind of what I mean.
Yeah.
Like
no, it's a fun fact.
it's not an
fact.
It's not an antidote to rising sea levels, but I don't know. I've been fascinated listening to a lot of left and right wing extreme opinions on climate change and the politicization.
You were really close the first time.
Politicization.
Isn't it politicization?
Thank you. Politicization.
Yeah.
There's a size to the policies and the politics.
Oh.
Oh. Thank you. But yes, the politicization of climate change. And just like, it's so funny how the data that gets analyzed from both sides is so selected. It's like all very carefully selected and broken down. And it's too bad Greta Thunberg had to get stuck in the middle of all this as, you know, just kind of an easy target for people to pick apart. When her general principle, I think, is just be very conscious of what you're doing to the world, but in a much louder, severe voice that I think a lot of people are reacting to right now out of, you know, wanting to get on board of a very noble cause and feel like they're helping out. I do think there is a ton of information that most people... I wish there was a unanimous source for people to reference data on things like climate change without there being debate about it.
Yeah.
People
don't care about data, man. They care about hearing what they want to hear or being entertained.
I think, yeah, fundamentally, you're totally right. I think a lot of people, though, hide behind data points in order to promote what their heart tells them is like the right direction or the correct cause.
Give me an example.
For instance,
We're waiting.
So it's tough for me to elaborate on this without having the like without having any of the details ready for like a lot. I don't know how to elaborate on this any deeper than I just did.
It's fine. We'll move on.
You failed. What did I say?
Okay.
A lot of people hide behind data points as an excuse for backing the cause they think is appropriate, right? That's the gist of
Yeah. Are you? Is that the roundabout way of saying that data points shouldn't be the entire source of
No.
motivation to do something
okay,
with
okay,
policy
okay.
or
So, well, okay, it's not about climate change, but for instance, like I just heard people talking about, okay, this is, I guess, a really relevant topic right now following the Nashville shooting that just happened.
yeah.
People on what are considered left-wing news outlets like NBC and CNN were saying that gun deaths are the leading cause of deaths in children. And that statistic, and on a right-wing news channel, they were breaking down, or I think it was a YouTube channel, they were breaking down how that phrasing of saying gun deaths are the leading cause in children is a little misleading, because if you take out 17 to 19-year-olds or 16 to 19-year-olds, like the upper side of that threshold, and leave, I forget what the age was, but it was from like 5-year-olds to 8-year-olds. I forget what, or 5-year-olds to 19-year-olds, I think was the range.
Yeah.
And all of those deaths occurred in like the top 10% of the age.
Okay.
So it was like, and the right wing people were like, this is like, if you don't want to, like, it's a gang thing. Like, there's a lot of people are saying there are a lot of deaths in this age group, but that statistic is all existing in like the years where you are kind of initiated into like lifestyles that are, you know, dangerous to participate in. And it was kind of like, I didn't really know how to like think about that, because that's definitely a very closed-minded breakdown of that data, thinking that it's completely contributed to like gang-related stuff. And at that point, it's like why did you have to kind of bring that cultural spin into it when you could probably look at that range for a lot of other things? I don't know. I'm not very smart, so I can't list a lot of them. But
Hey, that's not true.
in the sense of like just how that data is thrown around, though, do you see what I'm trying to say in an example to that? Like,
Well,
the argument in here, I suppose, is actually kind of against a left-wing approach, saying that they'll use a data point that says guns are the leading killer of children.
Mm-hmm.
And people on the right will say, well, like, fuck you, that's a messed up statistic, because you're sympathizing with the youngest children when all of these deaths are actually happening to the oldest children in this age group. So I guess that's, and I don't know, because it's data that I haven't researched or looked into myself.
Yeah.
And that's why I wish there was like a centralized location to get these data points that's mutually agreed on.
yeah.
And a lot of people, I think that whichever organization is gathering those data points is politically motivated, so they'll dismiss one and accept the other. I don't know. It's so fascinating to me. Like, ultimately, everyone's just trying to make a buck.
Well, sure, I guess. I don't know, that particular argument that you've just made in the sphere of, or that you've pointed to in the sphere of this gun control debate following Nashville, feels very ignorant and sidesteppy of the entire issue.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Like,
the focus should be on the taking care of the families who had losses during this tragedy.
I don't believe that the people fighting for more gun restrictions to avoid deaths are cool with gang-related shootings between the ages of 15 and 17 or whatever that is.
Right.
They would rather those people not have guns either. But sure. I mean, you point to holes in statistics all the time. So yeah, statistics are always a good place to start for people who actually want to solve a problem.
Right.
But to throw them around by means of just making an argument in a debate, yeah, you're opening yourself up for a lot of criticism from the other side. Yeah. Sad shit, man. Tennessee. It's a funny place. Our
And
brother
it was
Jay.
Nashville, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
all of our friends down there have some very close connection to this place. It's like right downtown, I guess.
Jeez.
A lot of variables of this particular school shooting that are like very different than all the other ones that have happened recently.
Yeah.
Like type of school, identity of the shooter. There's a lot of stuff that's like it doesn't really ring true, or it doesn't hold a lot of like coincidental similarities with many of the other school shootings that have happened.
There's a lot of abnormalities about this that don't align with the typical patterns.
I mean, it's tragic to talk about shootings in elementary schools as if there is a norm.
Right.
That's very sad. But yeah, it's a lot of conversations
Right.
to be had about all this, and probably not a lot is going to change, just like same as it ever was.
Yeah. As long as the NRA stops people from, researching this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
it'll never really have any way of progressing forward as long as they're lobbying and just. What do you think of the idea of taking lobbying out of politics?
Well, I'm not sure that's possible.
Why do you say that?
I'm not really super familiar with how lobbying works. Hey, nobody's stopping you from putting your own board together.
Yeah, you're right.
Plus, anything you do like that, I'm just going to put on the IZ board later.
Fair. Touche.
Yeah, I don't really know how the nuts and bolts of lobbying. Like, I know what it is just as a broad strokes thing, but
I mean, the principle in general of keeping money like the influence of giant corporations out of your politics is a good principle.
yeah, and I think just by human nature, it would be difficult, if not impossible, to pull off like a separation of moneyed interests in the politicians who are elected to make our laws. The more interesting way of thinking about it was, I was talking with Ash earlier about how, in particular, like so many of these issues that are headlines for days and days or weeks, like the real hot button controversial issues in the United States, more often than not, they are things that directly affect a small enough percentage of citizens that the rest of the population that's not directly affected by those things or the policies around those things tend to be like very centrally apathetic.
Yeah.
Like, sure, we all will split on like whether those things that happen are good or bad or consequential or not, but like ultimately the public opinion, I would even say like COVID was a very interesting one to watch because millions of people died from COVID in a way that doesn't line up with the narrative that it's just old sick people. Like healthy young people died from COVID in huge numbers,
Right.
relative to like anything else. But very few of us had a direct, close relationship with one of those people. Like it's still like a small percentage of American population that lost somebody very close to them
Yeah.
from like tragically unexpected fast death by COVID. So those policies around like what should we be doing now, what should we be doing when this happens again, I think it's very easy for a lot of people to have kind of an apathetic position on that, because at this point, like most people have been affected by COVID by getting it and recovering from it. But it's like it's a small minority of it's kind of the same thing with comedy and jokes that get comedians in trouble, where it's like people get really, really, really upset at certain topics of jokes because it touches them in a personal way.
Right.
And makes them feel like this is, it gives you such a strong emotional reaction that it's like, no, it's not just, I don't think that's funny. It's like, this is not funny. This should not be laughed about by anyone under any circumstance.
Yeah.
And
Outrage.
and that
Rebellion.
and that kind of a reaction sort of challenges like our idea of what freedom is and what freedom of speech is, and
Right.
and I think that same principle of like people don't really care about stuff until it directly touches them or makes it immediately very difficult or harder for them based on what they had been dealing with before.
Right.
So with the school shootings, any school shooting is too many school shootings. I don't think anybody would dispute that.
Right.
But if you love guns every day of your life and you collect guns and you subscribe to gun magazines and you're in NRA type groups and you have stickers on your truck and you watch Fox News all day hearing about how the government is always trying to take those guns out of your hands, then a school shooting halfway across the country, as much as most people could get down to a level of like, no, that's a horrible thing to happen and I would never wish that on anyone, the actual crossing the threshold of not the worst
Scared
timing.
the shit out of me, bro.
Not the worst timing.
Holy shit.
Having a conversation with anybody actually change your mind to cross the threshold of like, no, you know what? Maybe I and people should not have crazy weapons that we can walk right into a school and shoot children with. It's going to take, like, I mean, it's sad to say, but like until that person loses someone to senseless, tragic gun violence, it's going to be almost impossible to convince them otherwise. And then the same is true, but just in a more vague way for all the people that are like in the center and the middle of it all. And even the people who would say like, yes, we do need more gun control. They're only going to go as far as to vote for politicians who are aligned that way in the next election in 2 or 4 years or whatever. Then they're not actually going to turn into activists or donate money to organizations that are like actively working to try and change those things. So it's just too bad. I mean, it's not too bad. It's good that tragedies in our society.
Wait, you're saying that this shooting was a good thing? Did I hear you? So what you're trying to say is the Nashville shooting was a good thing.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
Can you believe this guy? What an outrage. Sorry, continue.
No, whatever the least messed up way to say, like sometimes it's just too, I mean, yeah, I think we should all be more empathetic people.
Right.
If we all had more empathy, it seems like we could solve some of these problems a little faster with the system of government that we have in place. But we don't. And because you can't force people to be empathetic, sometimes it frustrates me to think that like if only these controversial issues could be felt more closely by the people who like refuse to accept truth and logic on them.
Yeah.
I've actually heard, Joe told me when we were graduating college that he was taking a lot of like environmental science and law classes at the time, and he said that they watched this whole seminar or documentary about how climate activists are working actively on like VR experiences for people to try and
Capture those.
to try and get the points across in a way that feels more real to everyone. Because I mean, like it is difficult to convince a person on a beautiful day in temperate weather that like catastrophic things are happening to the climate and we all should take better care of the earth at the expense of big business, really. But like that's a hard argument to make. It's hard on any level to convince someone of like long-term, hard to see day-to-day benefits of things that inconvenience you in any way. That's a hard thing to do with any topic under any circumstance. But I think it's interesting that VR might help. It might actually have this enormous benefit of
it's
like
so immersive that you actually feel like nature's dying around
yeah.
you.
Well, Joe said the example in whatever he was seeing was like it'll allow you to do like you litter something, and then it like zooms out to how that like ripple affects the ecosystem that the litter happened, and then like you zoom out to the region where the ecosystems all work together and keep zooming out until eventually it's like you see what kind of effect that has on the whole world.
It's like you littered and then it starts fast forwarding through time and you can see that thing just staying there.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I wonder when this is going to end. And it just like keeps going.
Yeah. It's something like that.
That's a clever idea. I actually low key really like that as like an experimental experience for someone. That's cool.
Yeah.
One thing before we get too far away from the point, though, there was one thing I wanted to say. When you said that you don't think a Second Amendment type person who's heavily influenced by right-wing news outlets would understand what that necessary action would be until it happened to them. After talking with some associates of mine who are definitely more right-wing leaning, I would say that I actually don't necessarily think they would approach the solution in the same way. I think they would probably say, I wish somebody else was there with a gun to stop that person before they killed my kid.
That's an incredibly frustratingly stupid take on it, man. I'm sorry. I've got no problem telling you that. But continue what you were saying.
Whether either of us think it's an appropriate take is here or there. I'm just convinced enough people think that way that I don't think the result of them receiving trauma would play out the same as what you would expect it would from something like that. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. I'm saying anybody with a child that they've given birth to have some random stranger gun them down while they're in elementary school, that would change the chemistry mentally and physically of somebody who I am almost certain of it. Human beings across the board. That I'm not encouraging that to actually happen to people. I'm just saying, though, I think those people are full of shit and they're hiding behind a stupid opinion. And they haven't thought through that world where like everybody's got a gun, open carry all the time. Like they haven't thought through how dumb of an idea that is.
Yeah, when you think of the direction of that as a solution, like you're saying, the extreme as that would progress is like what you said. Everybody would have a gun. They'd be packing all the time. And while in an idealistic world, everybody in that environment would be afraid to draw on one another because they know the entire world could potentially kill them in retaliation. What kind of a world is that? It's much more logical to move the needle in the other direction with less guns when you think about the extreme as the ultimate goal point where nobody would really need a gun.
Yeah.
And therefore, I also didn't know that you could sell your AR-15 in Massachusetts. Or not sell, but you can turn in your AR-15 and receive a money back thing. I didn't know about that. That's a good incentive to turn or to, what would you say that? Release your weapon?
I think buyback usually is what they call that.
Buyback, there you go.
And unfortunately, it's very easily spun in right-wing media as the government's trying to take your guns from you by paying you for them, by doing business with you.
Seems like a pretty good direction to me.
Yeah, but like, it's also, I just think it's asinine to think that school employees, who, by the way, those people on the right side of things generally don't want to be paid any more money than they are, which is almost nothing, that they would be able to defend themselves and school children against a shooter with several guns who barges in unexpectedly.
Yeah.
It's like, of all the stupid arguments out there, I take pretty significant issue with that one. That's the argument that's fed to them by the powers that be. That
Why are you pointing to our logo?
it's the screen, man.
We're just talking about shit. We don't have any say in this.
Yes, we do.
If you mean the Black Mirror.
30 plus people listen to our podcast every week, dude.
An average of 30 people take what we say for 13 seconds and then click away. I know Rachel listens though.
And John.
Love John.
And Ash.
I love Ash.
Mom and Dad probably.
They probably turn it off after we say our first swear words. If you've made it this far, Mom and Dad, love you guys. I came first. No. Sorry, guys. My brother is crude.
But yeah, anyway. Good job wading into some weird topical territory.
Whatever, dude. We only live once. We should talk about
Loads of gun.
No, that's so bad. No, I think it's important to talk about these things. If people avoid talking about subjects like this, whether it's public or not, I just think that's unwise. Like, it's good to have discussions about difficult topics. And I think that's why I love doing this podcast with you, is because I think we talk about things well together. Like, I think we're able to, like you did. You challenged me. I jokingly challenged you back. But, like, I think that's something that very few people want to do nowadays, because if you are cornered, you come off as being stupid or weak or not worth people's attention, which in today's currency of social media is the most important thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's valuable to just talk about everything. It's just like when you're trying to get a podcast started, if you're saying some dodgy shit, people aren't going to listen, or you'll blow up for controversial reasons, which I would say is a lame way to get your business started. But
Yeah.
it sure is a strategy.
No, we talk about everything, so we should talk about that type of shit.
Yeah.
Interesting offshoot of that conversation. We talk a lot about buying.
Spilled all over myself. I'm a mess.
We talk a lot about buying land, building houses, or buying property in general. It's a constant topic of conversation with us. Have you ever thought seriously about living in a different country?
No.
No?
I don't think I'm interested either.
Yeah?
No, I'm just working through all the angles here. Frankly, I just don't think I would like my house to be the most comfortable place. And I think that you go through a lot of necessary but uncomfortable changes when you move to a new country.
Yeah.
And I don't think that I'm ready to do that. I'd like to chill out in here.
Yeah. Could move to England.
I need me brother.
I need my brother. Yeah, we'll start a gang and we'll slash up people with our razor blade hats. Why do you say that? Are you thinking about moving to another country?
The conversation Ash and I had on our walk today was like the uniquely as an offshoot of the Nashville shooting and the school shooting issue that America has. It is like a uniquely American. I've come to believe it's a uniquely American problem.
Mm-hmm.
I've thought a lot on my own about how like freedom is a word that gets thrown around a lot, probably particularly in America because of our Constitution and the way it was founded. And,
Yep.
Freedom and liberty, like those words have definitions, but
Patriotic buzzwords.
Right. They have definitions as to like American people, but then I also think like,
It's something about the angle that I'm sitting at.
You're not selling the silly pine very well right now.
Doesn't hold water. I just can't drink.
It's indestructible, but it sucks for drinking.
No,
it's great. It's great for
I'm
drinking.
trying to set it down on the table while I've
it
keep
happens.
going.
I was just thinking about how like there's an interesting conversation with open minds to be had about like freedom of and freedom from, like as an American in particular, when it comes to especially like let's stay on guns for a sec. Like I consider freedom like you are free from the worry of being shot by someone. Like I consider that freedom. But someone who, like a 2A person,
Freedom to do.
freedom of, freedom to own and use firearms when called upon to do so. I'm not like, my point is that like I don't think that's invalid. Like that's your mental pathway and approach to what you think freedom is on this issue. I take issue with a lot of Christian people who want to be free to persecute people who don't believe like them, but then also be free from persecution.
It's like
by non-Christians.
You got to pick one direction of freedom.
Have you ever seen that graphic of like, it's just like a diverse lineup of people and faiths and careers and stuff. It's just all these people, and Lady Liberty's in the middle holding the umbrella over them, and every person's word bubble is like, can you move it more my direction and less their direct? Like it's like a,
oh, that's funny.
everybody loves freedom of speech until someone says something they don't like, and then they want it taken away from them, but they would never want it taken away from themselves because that would
or
be
the people closest to them.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
So
that's a great visual.
Yeah, it's a cool cartoon. I'll send that to you. It hits the front page of Reddit like once a year. But
Nice.
But yeah, like I don't think you could get two American people to line for line agree on what freedom means across all these topics. And generally, I think freedom is sort of seen as a freedom to or freedom from kind of thing. And people who have very, like, I don't believe anybody's firmly like freedom to, because then they would be in favor of like freedom to murder people and freedom to do all these horrible, awful things.
But I am.
That are so intense that they actually are empathetic enough to think, I don't want that to happen to me. So that, yeah, we want freedom from this thing. But
freedom from being bothered by other people.
You know how Japan always comes up in like discussions about America's problems?
Hi.
How like Japan has basically had no crime for a long time, and
they use cattle wrangling tools to subdue criminals. It's brilliant. Have you ever seen a policeman's pitchfork in Japan?
What are you saying to me right now?
Keep talking while I get this prepared.
I love the idea of many of the things I hear about the way Japan does society, and they still are considered free.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of Japanese people, probably a huge majority, would say, yes, I feel free, but like that includes being free from a lot of things that I think people in America would rail against because it goes against their personal definition of freedom and liberty. And it just got me thinking about like our neighbors to the north.
Right.
Canada, I think, would be the easiest country to move out of the United States to, where we are, to be in a totally different country with a different government and different laws, but still live a relatively similar life culturally to what we have now.
Right.
But it just seems like oh, this is training.
No, that's well. This is a picture from training, but that's like a wrangling.
I was like, are the cops fighting the other cops?
So this is. I got this picture coincidentally from a Reddit article where someone's talking about the same thing. It says,
"Oh,
the Sasumata is a pole weapon used by the samurai in feudal Japan. It's also used today to safely wrangle anyone posing a threat to civilians."
That's great.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
You just keep your assailant on the ground at arm's reach with a pole.
Yeah.
Anyway, go on.
And this is not to say that like I'm well aware every single country has piles of its own problems.
Right.
But like, you know, we're 30, give or take, and the real growing up phase of our lives is about to start. And when you think about like a community you want to live in and the schools you want your children to attend and the things that you can do walking distance from where you live and the cost of just getting around and buying food and having it come from someplace near you. And like, I just have come to believe that there are a lot of places in the world that do many of those basic needs things so much better than all of America does right now.
I mean, I think if I was going to go anywhere, I'd go to our motherland, the Netherlands.
Well, having been there myself, dude, that goes through my brain a lot. I think I didn't stay there for too long, but the experience I had was like, it just seems like life is better. Like there's far fewer things to worry about when it comes to your health and your finances and the reliability of your work and the safety nets that exist under you socially if like awful unavoidable stuff happens.
And because individuals don't have to worry about those things as well, they're able to recognize when you need help from the community.
Yeah.
So like everyone's much more empathetic to each other.
Yeah. Yep. Did you know that Finland has pretty much erased homelessness?
I did hear that.
And it's because of programs that involve giving people free housing without medical requirements, like without having to be sober. And that program, I should cite my sources probably, but like that particular housing program had a 4 out of 5 people success rate for leaving the program a housed person.
Right.
And in America, if we ever get serious about solving a problem like that, it'll be years and years and years and years from now, because I think the powers that run this country are really invested in a struggling middle class that's always got its back up against the wall and shouldn't be helped socially under any circumstances. And you don't have to talk to our drummer Simon for too long to hear about all the examples of how, like, for a society, for all people in a society, it is cheaper on your taxes and happier in your actual day-to-day, moment-to-moment existence if we are helping each other out on those basic levels and like treating certain things that are major crimes in the United States as different types of problems and actually working on solving them and not
making a profit
and not
off
letting
them.
people argue about it for as long as possible to max out profits. And yeah, I guess I've come to realize that like I love America because I've lived here my whole life, and I love Massachusetts, and I do want to own property here and live a life here potentially. But it's been a particular dark couple years of my turning into 30s that has been like,
makes you kind of zoom out.
maybe big picture, like it'd be better to live in a place where like if I had a major medical emergency, it wouldn't bankrupt me instantly and wouldn't mean that I am going to lose my job and not be able to work in a new one. And and those are like most of the world still is like that, but America as a top of the line first world country is very behind a lot of other places on basic needs, middle class comfort, things like that.
Yeah, America definitely prioritizes self-sufficiency. You pulling your own weight.
Yeah.
Doing all the due diligence that another country's government would otherwise do for you, I suppose, while trying to swindle you because they know that people don't know any better.
Yeah. And I'm also not suggesting that like moving to Canada means all of those problems go away. That's not what I'm saying. But
Justin Trudeau, hey?
oh, you broke your leg? Oh, gee. Oh, let's get you over here to the hospital.
That was my best Jordan Peterson impression. Oh, Justin Trudeau, he's a criminal. Hey?
Oh, is that what he says?
Oh, and I think he has a lot of issues with Justin Trudeau.
Yeah, I'm sure he does.
Jordan Peterson's most recent thing is they're suspending his psychiatric license. I don't really know what it's called.
Oh, yeah.
Unless he undergoes social media retraining, which is hilarious.
Yeah. Did you know Justin Trudeau's mom ran away with the Rolling Stones one time? Justin Trudeau's father was also the Prime Minister of Canada, I think in like the 80s, maybe also the 70s.
Now I'm picturing Keith Richards being like, "We'll put some blackface on you." It's cool. Nobody will know. It's a funny joke.
Oh, little Justin found himself into the hotel room. Let's put shoe polish on his
face.
Look at your smile, brother.
Yeah, there's this great story. I think it's like it's hearsay. It's some eyewitness, but I guess like
Hearsay, sir.
Justin Trudeau's father was PM. His wife, Justin's mom, was like a controversial first lady kind of celebrity presence type person. She was notorious. I think for like being near
Ivanka Trudeau.
Sure. Yeah, more or less. That's what I recall from the story I heard. But yeah, I think like the Rolling Stones played one of the big cities in Canada.
Yeah.
And she attended the concert and then was like missing for like the better part of the night and the next day, and
Come in my bed.
and they ultimately found her
in my
like
bedroom.
they
After the show.
ultimately found her, I think, in the hotel room with the Rolling Stones. It was like, oh,
Jesus Christ.
that's a scattered retelling of whatever that tall tale is.
I don't know.
but-
If Mick Jagger and Keith Richards tell you to come hang out, I would probably do it. Pantsless.
You'd hang out with the Rolling Stones
Yeah.
without pants?
Yes. I don't think I would be at risk. All I'm thinking of is John Mulaney's Mick Jagger bit.
What is that bit?
He talks.
The Rolling Stones.
Oh, that's a pretty good John Mulaney impression. Shit. I didn't know you had that in there. He talks about when Mick Jagger was on SNL, and he's like, Mick Jagger is the only person who doesn't have to be nice to anybody. He was like, I was trying to write a joke. I was trying to write
I remember this story
an
now.
SNL skit, and I would pitch him a joke, and he'd go, "Not funny." And obviously, I'm not John Mulaney, so I can't tell it like he can, but that's a great bit.
Yeah, I remember that now.
All right, dude, you want to wrap this up? We're getting at an hour.
Yeah, sure, man. Good shit.
Yeah, great week. Heavy shit. This will be the last podcast episode in this studio.
Really?
Hey, brother.
I think so. Unless we can squeeze another week out. I don't know. This might be the last room we pack up.
Doesn't matter. Okay. I'll start saying my goodbye to the room.
I might change my mind. Maybe we can get another week out of it. Send us your sympathies at familiarsoundspodcast@gmail.com. Check us out. We're on YouTube. That's where you found us in the first place.
Yeah.
Tell them about where they can find you, brother.
Yeah. Follow the band at Blue Light Bandits or at bluelightbandits.com. Come see us at Boston Calling Friday, May 26th on a Tivoli Audio Orange stage at 5:20 p.m.
Hot.
Take a bus. Take a boat.
God damn it, that's such a long sample. You can find me on Instagram, Bad Luck Good Vibes, or you can check me out on my website, badluckgoodvibes.com. It's been a pleasure, my dude.
Yeah, dude. Fantastic.
He's a doggo. Look at you smile, brother.
That was cool.